show is mental. These days, we know that shows are fake. The Real Housewives, The Bachelor, The Only Way is Essex. We know that a lot of the plot lines are contrived to make the episode go in a certain way. And because of that, it's hard to get anything past the general public, right? As soon as the latest episode of Love Island's out, people are on Twitter talking about the contestants' foundation shade, revealing juicy bits of gossip about their private lives. But the reality TV shows that we know today didn't always exist. And because of that, the general public weren't expecting to be fooled. Ghostwatch is the programme that ruined that trust forever, and in the meantime, it became infamous as the worst TV hoax of all time. Ghostwatch was a one-off 90-minute TV programme that aired on Halloween night in 1992, and it billed itself as a live investigation into the paranormal. So let me just rip the band-aid off right now and say that this was fictional. It was written by a guy called Stephen Volk, who presented it to BBC execs, and no one really knew what to do with it at the time. I mean, a few were really excited and obviously it got made. It did take a while to get the BBC execs on board because they just had never seen anything like it before. It was a fake haunted house that was pretending to be live, and there was a lot of moving elements like the studio and then the live element and interviewing people on the street and blah, blah, blah. There was just a lot to it, okay? It was a meaty production and no one had really seen it done before. They were confused about how it was going to play out. And at first, the BBC execs were going to cast, you know, no-name people who'd never been seen before on TV. But someone was reading the script around Michael Parkinson. And if you don't know, Michael Parkinson is like a national treasure in the UK. He's very well known for being a trusted family name, a presenter, and he was, you know, really at the top of his game in 1992 when this came out. And Michael said, wow, I'd really love to be part of that. And this started a whole avalanche of what eventually led to all these household friendly smiley faces playing the lead characters in this show, which definitely added another element of intrigue because of course they knew that by putting these familiar friendly faces at the forefront of the show, more people were going to be fooled. And it worked. It worked so well that thousands of people complained about the show. And tragically, one person even took their life. So it's fair to say that the show got a lot of backlash. And before I talk about exactly what happened in the show, I do just want to say that before the show was published, it was on the cover of the Radio Times, which is like a TV guide here in the UK, and it did explicitly say that it was a drama. But it's no surprise to me that with Michael Parkinson at the helm, all these friendly faces, the new style of writing and drama, and just being lied to by the BBC, a lot of people believed in this. So what actually happened? So Michael Parkinson begins in the studio telling us that a team have been investigating a paranormal experience in the early family home in North London for around 10 months. All we know so far is that they have a ghost, and the ghost bangs on pipes a lot, so they call it Pipes. And now, live and direct, some of the researchers on the case, and a presenter we'll talk about soon, is going to spend a night in this haunted house. Still in the studio, we've got Michael Parkinson sat next to a fake doctor called Dr. Pascoe. Now, Dr. Pascoe is the one that brought this case to the attention of the BBC, supposedly. Her job is to support the family's version of events, and Michael Parkinson is the detractor. He doesn't believe in any of this. He thinks it's just all a hoax, ironically. Still in the studio, we've got a presenter called Mike Smith, who's manning the live call line. His wife, Sarah, is spending the night in the haunted house. So you've got the studio with Michael Parkinson, the fake doctor, Mike Smith, all very familiar faces apart from the doctor. And we've got a massive screen showing us a live feed into the haunted house. Also, I had a bit of a blast from the past because outside the house, they've got Craig Charles interviewing people. And every day after school, I used to watch Takeshi's Castle, which he presented. And yeah, it's just a complete blast from the past for me. So in this haunted house, we've got the fake early family. And I always find it so interesting what writers call fake families in fictional pieces. Like, what does early symbolize anyway? There's 3 members of the family. We've got the mother, Pam, her eldest daughter, Suzanne, and her youngest daughter, Kim. There's no father in the picture. Back in the studio, Michael Parkinson shows us a clip from a few months before. It's the girls in their bedroom.
Mum said if you don't... Right.
Now this is the point where Emma Stapleford, our caller, says she could identify that dark, mysterious figure.
Did you catch that? Oh my heart fell to my stomach when I first saw that figure. My timbers were shivered. Soon enough, Mike Smith gets a live call from someone saying they saw the figure. And then we get Dr. Pascoe and Michael Parkinson pulling up the clip. And even though it's visible, they pretend they can't see it, which is a really, oh my God, am I insane moment for the viewer. Back in the house, Sarah and the family hear banging noises from a cupboard in the kitchen. They open it up, it's just Craig Charles in the mask. He jumps out and boos them and Sarah's like, oh, what you like? And he's clearly not taking any of this seriously. There's a lot of attention to the room underneath the stairs, and Kim says that she's actually seen the ghost pipes under the stairs. She peeked through the door and saw his eyes through the crack. And it also turns out that Pam got trapped in there once and she could feel the presence of a man beside her breathing in her ear. And my family used to live in a house with a cellar that scared the shit out of me. Oh my God, our freezer was down there, and whenever I had to go, I ran as quick as I could and I ran back upstairs, and there was a creepy corner around there as well. Back to the girls. It turns out they've both been drawing really creepy pictures of pipes. At least Kim has. There are pictures and drawings in Suzanne's school books, but she said she didn't make them.
Book from school. Oh, I was so shocked. I said to her, did you write this?
This has been going on for months, so the Early family is pretty traumatised. Pam has tried to go to a social worker, she's gone to the local school, she's gone to the local council trying to move house, and they all basically tell her she's insane. And as a last-ditch attempt, she contacted Dr. Pascoe, who said, look, I think this investigation is going to have more credibility if someone like the BBC oversees it. So this is how the television show was made. The eldest daughter, Suzanne, is really central to the plot because she's had lesions appearing all over her face. And the most disturbing part is that Dr. Pascoe said she has seen them appear herself. Outside, Craig Charles is interviewing one of the neighbours that's been sort of a safe haven for the family while they're going through this incredibly traumatic event. And she said, yeah, it's horrific, but this isn't the only supernatural thing in the neighbourhood. She said that her son came home from school really upset one day because he saw a Labrador sliced up, and the Labrador was pregnant and the babies were scattered all about. And it's at this point where I was like, okay, they're not fucking about with this hoax. This isn't a little let me hold your hand horror, like the occasional scare here and there. They're really building a sense of horror and dread. And I can't talk about every detail here, but there's so many small little details that they use throughout the story to make it convincing. Like when Sarah puts the girls to bed, she comes back downstairs and finds a circle in the carpet in the living room, a massive circular stain that was not there before, and the fact that some of the cameramen's watches stopped before filming started. Also outside, Craig interviews a spiritualist who is a very good actor. By the way, they're all very good actors, especially the little girls. While Sarah's investigating this strange circle, the girls upstairs begin screaming that there's someone in the room. The crew and Sarah run upstairs and they find that a banging sound is coming from the mother's room in the closet, and they're so close to opening the closet when the girls again scream downstairs that there's someone in the living room. Sarah runs down and she finds children's drawings scattered all over the floor. Again, there's banging sounds coming from upstairs. Sarah and the crew race upstairs, but they stop just at the landing. Through some fancy camera work, the crew are able to get a video at the very bottom of Kim and Suzanne's door where they can see Suzanne making the sound herself with like an old shoe or a book or something. Back in the studio, Michael Parkinson thinks the case is closed. It was clearly just a hoax. Suzanne breaks down and she admits that she was making the noises so that the crew would stay that night. But she said, I didn't make the noises before this.
She doesn't know she doesn't know anything. Do you, love? We thought you'd leave us.
You thought I'd leave you?
All we were noises to you.
And you lied to make us stay?
Only sometimes?
It was what you wanted, wasn't it? We just gave you what you wanted. Stop.
Back at the studio, Mike is still getting calls about this figure in the children's room. And strangely, all the descriptions are the same. They say they saw an old man or woman, bald with a skull-like head with holes for eyes. Here in this description, Dr. Pascoe has a brainwave, and she requests from her research team a video of an interview between her and Suzanne from about 2 months ago. Dr. Pascoe asks Suzanne if she's ever seen pipes, and Suzanne replies yes, and she gives the exact same description. At the house, the crew hears cat sounds coming from the walls. They rush upstairs, and Suzanne is laying in her bed in an almost catatonic fugue state with scratches and lesions all over her face. I found this really disturbing.
That love, your mum's here. Oh dear God.
Oh, delusion.
What do you want us to do?
Sarah,
what do we do?
Sarah, you're all right.
Get away from...
No, Mum, they have to stay. They have to see everything.
Michael Parkinson is very dismissive. He plays his role very well. And he says, oh, she probably just scratched herself, which led to this iconic moment.
She used her own fingernails for this. Fingernails? What flaming fingernails? Look, what do you want to do?
No one has any idea what's happening. Meanwhile, Mike says there's another caller who says this.
Hello, who am I talking to?
Oh, hello. My name's Mary Christopher, and I just wanted to phone and tell you about this. Well, about my mother, really. We were North Oak born and bred, and us children, if we were naughty or couldn't get to sleep, our mum used to say, Mother Seddons will come to get you. Used to scare us, rigid. I don't know why she...
Parents do some awful and daft things, don't they, Mary?
Yeah, well, years later I found out that she really did exist, and she was a baby farmer, like a childminder. She used to take kids in, but she used to kill them, and she'd drown them in the big coppers. And why I'm ringing is she used to live in one of the old terraces in Foxhill by the railway, as it was then, and is now Foxhill Drive, and I'm just sure it's where those poor girls live now. And really, that's all I have to say. I just wanted to make sure you knew.
Thanks for your call, Mary. Thanks very much for calling me.
That really put a pit in my stomach. And the only small relief is that Pam is like, I gotta take my daughters out of here. And Kim is in a trance-like state and the cameramen are trying to get her out. And just as the cameraman is running out, his camera sort of flips and we see another picture, another small clip of that figure stood in the girls' room. The crew really helped to create a claustrophobic feeling in Ghostwatch. They're running up and down this tiny ass landing. They're squeezing in and out of rooms. They're doing close-ups of faces. And a fun fact is that they used videotape instead of the typical 16mm film to create a very shaky sort of vibe, similar to the Blair Witch Project. The studio is really struggling to stay in contact with Sarah because there's a piercing sound in her ear. And we flip to a close-up video of Suzanne.
Susie. Stop it! Stop it, Susie! Suzanne, you're coming with me.
Sarah realises there's a cat sound coming from the cupboard under the stairs. Yeah, that very same one where Kim said she saw pipes earlier. The cupboard under the stairs has been boarded up, but Sarah asks a crew member to take the board off. She stood behind the door. The crew member is opening the door, and as it creaks open, he sees the figure and passes out from shock. It's a very tense few moments with Michael Parkinson and Dr. Pascoe as they're just sat there wondering what's happening. Finally, they get the feed back and everything looks fine. It's a feed into the living room. The family's just sat around with the crew and everyone looks normal and fine, and they're just chit-chatting and having a drink. Meanwhile, Mike Smith says there's another caller with more information.
Do you know Mr. and Mrs. Sellers?
Yes, they're on our list of tenants. They lived there in the 60s, I think.
Did you know they sublet a room?
No, I didn't know that.
Being illegal, it wouldn't be on the official records. The lodger was their nephew, Raymond Tunstall.
How do you know him? Why are you calling, sir?
I worked as a social worker when he came out of psychiatric hospital. He had several convictions for molestation, aggravated abuse, abduction of minors. He should never have been let anywhere near any community. He was a very disturbed man, in my opinion.
In what way?
From the time he moved to Foxhill Drive, he developed paranoid fantasies. He used to tell me there was a woman on the inside of his body, taking over his thoughts and actions, making him do things he didn't want to do. He started to wear dresses. The delusions got so bad, there was only one way to escape them. He took his own life. That's why I called. When I was sitting here watching the TV and...
Hello? Are you still there? If you are, please go on. Hello?
Tunstall hanged himself. He tied wire around his neck to a lathe and switched it on. Did it where he kept his tools, under the stairs. His aunt and uncle were on holiday. It was 12 days before anybody found him. They heard the cats screaming. He had about a dozen cats. The cats were locked in, of course. And of course, 12 days, they got hungry. They got to work on his face.
Dr. Pascoe is really distressed, and after a while of staring at the footage, she realises something isn't right.
This picture we're seeing now isn't live. This is some earlier footage from earlier in the evening. This is just a cover. It's a dupe.
But
This
what...
isn't happening now.
But what is happening?
All hell breaks loose. The studio becomes very windy and chaotic, and all sorts of things start happening. And she says, we've accidentally created a seance. We finally get a live feed to the house and everyone is stood outside in blankets. Police are around, ambulances around, everyone's okay, apart from Suzanne and Sarah, who are still inside the house. Sarah heard Suzanne calling for help and went in to find her. And this is where we get the coolest bit of the entire show. In true Silence of the Lambs fashion, we get Sarah going into the cellar on an infrared camera looking for Suzanne. The door to the room under the stairs slams shut behind her, and we're left with Michael Parkinson looking very confused in the studio. And amidst all the chaos, the show ends with this.
I don't know. There's cameras, but I don't know which one's working. I mean, there are no cameramen. I mean, it's difficult to know, even if anybody's still with us. But if they are, this is the scene in this studio, this totally deserted studio. Good. Autocue's working. Round and round the garden, like a teddy bear.
Oh my god, I can see why people thought it was real. It's so cool, it's so well acted, the script is good, the details are great, there's plot twists, the use of the familiar faces really makes it feel real. And I do love it now. I love it in the context of a scripted TV show meant to make me feel a certain way. And when I first watched this a few days ago, it was about midnight and I was snuggled up in my bed, and even knowing it was scripted, I still had to hide under my covers for a few bits because it was really tense and well crafted. However, I think in the context, it was misguided. I think the excitement of doing something that had never been done before was probably really addictive, and the writer and the actors and everyone probably got really excited. But in the context of the trust placed in the BBC and TV in general, and familiar faces like Michael Parkinson, I think it was misguided. And now we have to talk about one of the most horrendous parts of this whole situation. A few days after Ghostwatch aired, 18-year-old Martin Denham took his own life. He left a suicide note that read, "If there are ghosts, I will be with you always as a ghost." The Independent ran an article with his parents, and his stepdad said he thought it was entirely the fault of the BBC. He said that Martin was hypnotised and obsessed by Ghostwatch. In the article, the Independent said that Martin had learning difficulties and he had the mental age of a 13-year-old despite being 18. And he was absolutely hypnotised by the show. His stepdad remembers him just being glued to the screen, and he had to repeatedly ask him, Martin, are you okay? Are you okay? And he was just kind of in a trance. Martin's parents ended up launching a complaint against the BBC, which was originally denied. However, they then took it to the High Court, and they granted permission for the parents to have a judicial review requiring the BSC to hear their side of the story. After that ruling, the BSC said the BBC had a duty to do more than simply hint at the deception it was practicing on the audience. In Ghostwatch, there was a deliberate attempt to cultivate a sense of menace. They ruled that the programme was excessively distressing and graphic, referring to the scratches on the children and the reference to mutilated animals, and they aired too soon after the 9 p.m. watershed. They further stated that the presence in the programme of presenters familiar from children's programmes took some parents off guard in deciding whether their children could continue to view it. The BBC responded by saying that the programme was marketed as fictional, but they did eventually concede and apologise to the family. And I will say there was a writing credit at the very start of the show. However, it wasn't on screen for long, and it was immediately followed by Michael Parkinson saying, "The programme you're about to watch is a unique live investigation of the supernatural." So yeah, I probably wouldn't pay attention to it either. And remember the hotline we talked about on the show? So that was a real number, but it was designed to play a pre-recorded message explaining that the show was fictional. However, they were so inundated with calls that it crashed the line, and all they heard was the beeping sound of them waiting. So they would naturally assume, oh, other people are having terrible experiences too. They did not hear the message saying it was fictional. So a lot of people believed it. 11 million people watched it and 30,000 people complained. But it's worth mentioning that a lot of the complaints were along the lines of, the BBC has made me feel stupid. Some have even said that the show breached the trust between viewers and the BBC. It is crazy to think of how much of a reach this programme has had. 2 years afterwards, in 1994, there was a report in the medical journal describing 2 cases of Ghostwatch-induced post-traumatic stress disorder, and that was the first reported case of PTSD being caused by a TV programme. The journal detailed the experience of 2 10-year-old boys. One of them had nightmares and daytime flashbacks, and the other had to have 3 weeks worth of appointments with a doctor to create a behavioural programme to help him get back to normal life. How insane is that? I've never heard of anything like this in my life. In 2020, the show's director, Leslie Manning, did an interview with The Guardian. He said, "I definitely didn't set out to cause mass hysteria. I thought the fact that it was a drama was obvious. It was trailed as such by the continuity announcer, and it opened with a written by credit," which is that tiny little one we talked about before. And with the benefit of hindsight, it's easy to say, oh my God, how could they have believed this? But within the context of 1992, it makes a lot of sense. One of the biggest reasons is that it was a BBC show. And for anyone outside of the UK, the BBC is like, well, it was the crown jewel of the UK. It's not so much a trusted institution anymore. Cough, Jimmy Savile, Hugh Edwards. Wait, was Philip Schofield BBC? Anyway, lots of perverted men. It was founded on the belief that broadcasting should serve the public rather than commercial interests, and the BBC was, and still is, mainly funded by the taxpayer through their TV licence. Another reason people believed in Ghostwatch so much was because it was headed by Michael Parkinson, who again was the crowning jewel of the BBC. The BBC's brand has taken quite a few knocks in recent years, especially when it comes to presenters like Jimmy Savile, Hugh Edwards. I won't go on and on about it, but it has made the public very suspicious of the BBC. But back in the day, the BBC could do no wrong, and the presenters could do no wrong, and thank God we've learned from those mistakes. So there you have it, the story of Ghostwatch. I can't quite believe this. I knew little bits and bobs about it. I didn't know to the extent at which it had an impact. I didn't know that someone took their own life. I didn't know that so many people really believed it, but I think that's coming from a really, not privilege, but a position of like extreme media literacy now and being aware of all the different types of media and things like that. I mean, remember when The Exorcist came to cinemas, people were throwing up and running out and all sorts. And now you can see that sort of thing and not really blink. I think for me, it's a cult piece of media, and I would be able to enjoy it a lot more knowing that obviously it didn't have such tragic consequences. For me, it will always have a place in my heart, but I just wish they'd made it a bit more obvious that it was fictional. I think people would have still been very upset by it, but maybe not to that extent. If you want to hear more about internet drama, cult media, and just cool things I like and subscribe, and I'll be back next week.